Shen Yuan and I were husband and wife for 10 years, and in the end, we both died. Moments before death, he lay in the mud looking at me, tears streaming from his eyes. Yu Yuan, I forgive you. I hadn't spoken to him for 3 years, and I didn't want to now either. I simply used all my strength to turn over, putting my back to him until I breathed my last. Just like on our wedding night 10 years ago, I had nowhere to go, not even a small cot, so I could only endure the humiliation and sleep back with him. Back then, he slept peacefully, without a pair of trembling hands wrapping around him like right now. In the 16th year of the Yongcheng era, the Duke of Wei's household formed factions for personal gain and disrupted the court's order. The entire family was executed. Blood flowed like a river at the East Street crossing. Even several heavy rains couldn't wash it clean. Even I, the Duchess who had been divorced and cast out of the residence, was pierced through the heart by an arrow on my way out of the capital. It was Shen Yuan who killed me. He ruined my whole life, and just when he finally set me free, he still had to come chasing after me, making others think I am still entangled with him. When young General Ji shot the first arrow, I saw satisfaction in his eyes. It was Shen Yuan who threw himself forward to block an arrow for me, but that wasn't the only arrow. In the end, I was pierced through the heart by an arrow and fell in front of a group of pursuers. By my side was my ex-husband, Shen Yuan, married for 10 years and divorced for 7 days. He looked at me gently, tears in the corners of his eyes. Yu Yuan, I forgive you. I had been silent for so many years. There was no reason to suddenly open my mouth and talk to him. It was just that I didn't have the strength. So I had to let those hands stubbornly wrap around me from behind. Then I fell into darkness. But when I woke up again, I wasn't in the King of Hell's palace. The 7th sister of the Yu family asked me in a lowered voice, Yu Yuan, do you want to marry Shen Yuan? My heart was pounding wildly. I looked at her delicate, gentle face in the dim candlelight, and that mouth chattering away on its own. That is the Duke's mansion. Even though Shen Yuan's birth mother died early and her family isn't prominent, he is still a proper legitimate son. He'll be the heir in the future. I had actually returned to 11 years ago, that night when 7th sister was persuading me to get married. I remember clearly, that night she didn't just mention Shen Yuan to me. There were others too. Only Shen Yuan was the most suitable. I chose him myself. I had a brief encounter with him when I was first awakening to love. My cousin brought him to our manor as a guest back then, and I caught a glimpse of him from a distance. But this time, I don't want to choose. I listened to her finish with a smile, then asked timidly, 7th sister, what about that young master from the Ji family? What is his name? Her anxious expression froze for a moment. Then she said flatly, the young master of the Ji family hasn't been in the capital for a long time, and since I stay in the inner quarters, I am not too clear on his name. Yeah, 7th sister has been deep in her boudoir for so long. It is normal that she doesn't know the names of outside men, but she does know Shen Yuan's name. Not only does she know it, but she even placed him among a group of people with family backgrounds, inferior to his for me to choose from. She is a good sister, but she certainly wasn't my good sister. So I gave a shy smile, lowered my head, and said, young Master Ji has a simple family background and is ambitious. I think he might be quite decent. She still refused to give up, then Shen Yuan. I looked up straight at her and interrupted. That is not someone I could ever hope to match. 7th sister knows that my mother passed away early. As a motherless eldest daughter, my marriage prospects were already difficult, and I have no one to manage such major life events. I am already very grateful that 7th sister is planning for me. There is absolutely no reason for me to make things difficult for you. Her words got stuck in her throat just like that. Satisfied, I put my hand to my forehead, feigning discomfort. She quickly took the hint and took her leave. The night was deep, and moonlight spilled in, casting hazy shadows before the window through the hanging gauze curtains. The stiff coldness from before death vanished, replaced by warm body heat. It was the middle of winter when I died, but now it is spring. In my past life, before leaving the capital, I was filled with panic, terrified that as soon as I arrived in Lingzhou, my stepmother would marry me off to just anyone. I lived in the capital for 8 years, spending my girlhood here. My bond with my father had long since grown thin, with only letters exchanged during holidays. The Yu family's roots were in the capital. When I was 6, I came down with a fever just as father was assigned a post elsewhere. Mother couldn't bear to leave me, so she had to stay in the capital to care for me. The following year, father sent a letter from Lingzhou, saying he had taken the daughter of a local squire as a concubine, claiming it was truly out of absolute necessity. Mother couldn't understand what kind of necessity that was, and in a fit of anger, she fell gravely ill and never recovered. However, right up until she died, she never got to see father one last time. Only the old servant who had followed father for many years rushed back to prepare mother's remains. After the funeral ended, I didn't want to go back with her, and she only said, "Just as well." After that, I stayed in the capital and was raised by the second branch of the Yu family. That is, my father's own younger brother and his wife. I am about to come of age this year, and I received a letter from Lingzhou. Just when I was feeling uneasy, I shed I don't know how many tears. Seventh sister is second uncle's legitimate daughter. Her father is an idle official in the capital with many wives and concubines. He has fathered over a dozen daughters, but only one son and 2 daughters were born to her mother. We ate and slept in the same place since we were little, and in private, affectionately called her sister. Hearing the news, she came over that very night, bringing an album of portraits, urging me to stall for a few more days, pick a husband, and marry in the capital. In my previous life, I was desperate and clutching at straws, thinking she really had a way, but she probably had something on her mind and didn't notice how I addressed her just now. I gathered my thoughts and called out, "Shu Ning." Soon, a young girl of 15 or 16 lifted the curtain and came in, saying softly, "Miss, has 7th Miss left?" I smiled, held her hand, and said, "Let's go. Go call Wang Yue." In my boudoir, I killed the first person. I dragged the body out myself, and I threw it into the well personally. I was soaked in sweat from the exhaustion. I said goodbye down the well. Go reincarnate Wang Yu. Don't meet me again. She was 9 years older than me. At the age when I was still naive, she already knew how to plan for herself. In my past life, when the news came that father was taking a concubine, mother wasn't willing to rush to Lingzhou. What arrived right after was a private letter, signed with father's nickname. Mother was furious and refused to open it, ordering Wang Yue to burn it. She soon regretted it and resolved to sneak off to Lingzhou by herself to find her father and get a clear answer. But Wang Yu didn't dispose of that letter. Not only opened and read it, but also kept it hidden. Mother suddenly fell ill, and after that, the letters and medicine from Lingzhou were fetched by her. Just like that, she fed bowl after bowl of medicine to my mother. After 2 years of illness, she finally passed away, but Lingzhou didn't take her seriously. Instead, they let her continue staying by my side, right up until the end, giving her the chance to harm my unborn child. That letter from father held the whole truth. I can't let her go back to Lingzhou, just as she thinks exactly the same. The next day, 7th sister came again, bringing my favorite tea pastries. As soon as she came in, she asked, "How come I don't see Sister Wang Yue today?" That was strange. It was only morning, according to routine. Shouldn't Wang Yu be in the kitchen supervising breakfast? I kept a straight face. Maybe she went back to the countryside to see her mom. Wang Yu's mom went to Lingzhou ages ago. 7th sister knows that. Luckily, she didn't ask further, bringing up yesterday's conversation again. "Xiao Yuaner, it is not too late to change your mind now. By tomorrow, you really won't have any way to stay in the capital." I kept up my stubborn front, but I think young Master Ji is really quite nice. She was exasperated. No matter how good young Master Ji is, he is just a son of a humble family. How can he compare to the prestige of the Duke's household? With looks and character like yours, Sister Yuan, you deserve the best husband. Truly ruthless. How could she possibly introduce so many young gentlemen to me? She hasn't even married yet herself, sadly. I was too young and foolish in my previous life. It was just that she was certain from the start I would choose Shen Yuan. The others making up the numbers didn't matter at all. Having said all this, she still showed no sign of changing her mind. Since that is the case, she can't blame me then. In the evening, Ninth Sister suddenly sent someone to invite me for tea. Ninth Sister Yusheng is Seventh Sister's biological sister, and she often had disputes with me in the past. She felt that I stole her older sister. She was lively and radiant from a young age, fighting to be first in everything. Whenever I displeased her in the slightest, she would inevitably try to drive me back to Lingzhou. Back then, having endured years of brainwashing by Wang Yu, I was terrified of the stepmother I had never met, so I let her bully me every time. Second uncle and second aunt didn't care. Only Seventh Sister would earnestly comfort me, gently patting my head and telling me it wasn't my fault. Yusheng was even more resentful because of this, always trying to one-up me growing up. I had Shunning carry the tea pastries and went happily to the appointment. It was already spring, and the weather was getting warmer. On the waterside pavilion, layers of misty green curtains were draped, and the candlelight shone through like fog, illuminating half the pond. Yusheng was inside making tea. Seeing me arrive, she uncharacteristically gave a smile. You are setting off tomorrow. Elder sister went with mother to our maternal grandfather's house today, so I am seeing you off on her behalf. Maybe she truly did love me once, so she was somewhat afraid to face me. Yusheng asked me to sit down and poured me a cup of tea herself. I gladly accepted. We sat there for a while, then she suddenly said, "Older sister loves you the most." Yeah, I used to think so too. After 2 cups of tea, my vision began to blur. She smiled genuinely. You can't go back to Lingzhou. Then, acting completely brazenly, she ordered the maid right in front of me. Go invite Master Shen over. Just say the tea is ready, and I am waiting for him here. Next, according to her plan, Shen Yuan was supposed to sit across from her, sipping tea and discussing philosophy, while pouring out their hearts to each other. Then have him drink a cup of spiked tea, fall into a deep sleep embracing the beauty, and wake up to find the person in his arms had turned into me. I would become his wife, enter his residence, and endure 7 years of the cold shoulder. In the end, she was cast out and met a miserable death. As for Yusheng, through her family's maneuvering, she would enter the prince's manor as the official wife in the end, to wash away the traces of past entanglements with Shen Yuan, using Shen Yuan's trust to fabricate evidence and drive the Shen family to extinction. This is the life they chose for me. But I am no longer the 15-year-old Yu Yuan. I have to go back to Lingzhou. The moment before I fell asleep, I smelled a familiar scent of green bamboo. He is here, Shen Yuan. Separated by 2 layers of gauze curtains, I heard him say, "I'll come to propose marriage next month," Yusheng said coquettishly. "But you don't have an official rank yet. You can't marry me without an official rank." He snickered, and I don't know what he showed Yusheng, but she exclaimed in surprise right then, "You've entered the Ministry of Revenue as a director?" The male voice, still carrying a youthful air, replied, "Sheng, I promised you." How would I dare to slight a beauty without an official rank? They were just such a couple in mutual love, even if I chose Shen Yuan in my last life. In reality, I didn't actually have a choice. Yusheng couldn't be the one to abandon her lover. Me, 7th sister, you're wrong. Only did it so she would have something to say when I came to my senses and questioned her. He and Yusheng are in mutual love. It was you who told me you wanted him as your husband. It was like a bolt from the blue. I became the woman who plotted to steal her cousin's marriage, and I had to bear that stigma for my entire life. And all of this was just so second uncle's family could feel at ease while trapping me in the capital. In this life I wasn't willing yet. They still wouldn't let me off. It is just that Yurong chose not to be present this time. Soon, a muffled thud came from outside the curtains. It was Shen Yuan collapsing. This time, Yusheng collapsed right alongside him. The tea pastries were made personally by her older sister, so naturally she snatched them up as soon as she saw them. They must taste pretty good. After all, I added a little something extra too. I stood up, straightened my sleeves, and personally stripped the two of them stark naked. Happily ever after, you two. The people coming to catch the adulterers caught Yusheng and Shen Yuan. On the same day, a maid found a corpse in the well of 7th Miss's courtyard, and a concubine swore up and down that she had seen 7th Miss frequently associating very closely with Wang Yu. When the manor went into an uproar, I was lowering my head to enter the carriage. In a trance, a voice called me, "Yuaner, little Yuaner." This is the nickname my mother gave me because I was chubby when I was little. The groom didn't say a word, and we left without looking back. In my past life, mother lived and died in the capital, and I never ventured more than 100 miles away. In the end, I never managed to reach any other cities. As soon as I arrived in Lingzhou, my dad came all the way to the city gate to pick me up. He was much older than I remembered, had grown a beard, and was lean as a pine. When he saw me, it even took him a good while to react, before his lips trembled and he said, "You are finally here." Then there was silence between us. I saw 2 lines of murky tears roll down his face, and I couldn't help but let out a choked sob myself. When we arrived at the Yu residence in Lingzhou, I found the place decorated with lanterns and colored streamers, full of festive cheer. My father was obviously happy and said casually, "Your older brother is getting married today, and you've arrived in Lingzhou too. It really is a double blessing." My mother only gave birth to me, but I didn't ask further. I followed the servant leading the way to my courtyard. Amidst the noise from the front courtyard, I clutched the jade pendant my mother never parted with, rubbing it gently. "Mom, I saw Dad. He is doing pretty well. It is just that he is not as handsome as before. He is a little old man now. You rest easy and reincarnate, and go find yourself a young man." Of course, no one answered me. An experience like mine is unheard of. The next day, the stepmother called me over to formally meet the family. She looked me up and down. "Eldest Miss is indeed beautiful." I smiled softly, lowered my head, and replied, "You flatter me, madam. My uncles, aunts, and sisters in the capital all say I look like my mother." The hall fell silent for a moment, only that new bride looked curious, before her hand was grasped by her husband. The stepmother sneered. "What a sharp-tongued girl. No wonder they say not to marry a motherless eldest daughter. You were raised on the outside since you were little, too. For the next 3 months, eldest miss, just stay in the courtyard and learn the rules properly. It is about time to discuss marriage." Only then did I look up at her fair, skinned and full-figured. She actually had a kind-looking face, humiliating me in public, yet with smiling eyes, acting the part of a loving mother. She was holding a little girl in her arms, looking to be about 5 years old. I answered submissively, "Madame is right. As long as I don't have to get married right now, that is fine." Back in the courtyard, Shu Ning was fuming. "Miss is a legitimate daughter after all. How dare she treat you like this?" I shook my head. That is how it is for a child without a mother. So what if my status is noble? I froze, suddenly thinking of Shen Yuan. In my past life, I just thought that since we both lost our birth mothers early, I felt sorry for him and loved him, hoping he would also sympathize with me, allowing me to at least live a slightly less difficult life in that household. But none of his tenderness was for me. He was convinced I was manipulative and had schemed against him. He even requested a transfer away right after consummating our marriage in the 6th year, leaving me at home to be tormented by his stepmother. Later, Yusheng found out I was pregnant, and before he rushed back to the capital, he had Wang Yue switch my medicine. I lost the baby. When he returned, the first thing he threw in my face was asking why I hadn't drunk the contraceptive soup in the first place. He froze for a moment after saying it. I just had shunning kick him out, and never mentioned a single word about it again. It was just a lump of flesh and blood. I've been seeing blood every day since I was 12. So what is so strange about this? As for sadness, if I was sad, then I was sad. He never asked how, seeing as I already bore a scandalous reputation. I turned out the way I did only after letting the jackals in the Duke's manor seize the chance to nearly devour me whole. I poisoned Wang Yu to death. That was the first time I got blood on my hands. He was convinced I was a venomous woman, and I didn't offer a single word in my defense. During those nights kneeling in the ancestral shrine, I used to hope he'd suddenly come back, say he'd found out the truth, and treat me well from then on. Day after day, night after night, I waited for years. I grew from a young girl into the mistress of the house, and he inherited his title. My life finally got a little better, but my affection for him had worn away completely. Later, I no longer hoped for him to treat me well. I only begged him to set me free. But he looked at me furiously with those affectionate eyes of his. Don't you dare. What makes you think you can come and go as you please? Who do you take me, Shen Yuan, for? After that, I played the mute for 3 years. What was the use of saying any more? No one believed me. A man as gentle and elegant as him smashed up the bedroom quite a few times. While he hired ever so many doctors, I never opened my mouth to say another word to him. At the same time, he had to guard against me trying to find ways to take revenge on Yusheng. He hated me. So in the end, when he found out I was sick, and wanted to make one last trip to Lingzhou for my mother, even though he felt I didn't actually deserve to die, he still wouldn't agree to a divorce. Right until the end when we died together, he still believed I had no sense of shame. He said he forgave me. But what right did he have? Xu Ning felt sorry for me. But I felt sorry for her. She was introverted and often wouldn't tell on anyone, even when she was bullied. Just because she wasn't willing to plot against me with Wang Yue. Wang Yue would often target her. Her parents were held in the hands of Wang Yue, Yu Rong, and Yu Sheng, but she thought it was just petty infighting within the boudoir. It wasn't until I lost my child that she suddenly told me the truth while crying and laughing, and then killed herself by running into a pillar. Before leaving the capital, I settled her parents. She didn't know where Wang Yu had gone, only remembering that after waking up from a deep sleep, that person was gone. I gazed at the moonlight outside the window and whispered, "Don't rush, just missing one last spark." The stepmother was the daughter of a Lingzhou squire, my dad once said. In my past life, the 2nd year after my mother passed away, she was elevated to principal wife, and she sat in the seat of the magistrate's wife right until I died. Which squire's daughter could have such means? When Shen Yuan divorced me, he sat down with a rare calmness and said softly, "That stepmother of yours isn't simple. The capital is so big, you could easily find a house a bit further away from the State Duke's manor. There is no need to go back to Lingzhou." I still responded with silence. He was somewhat at a loss, and in the end said nothing more. But he certainly wasn't wrong. This second wife of my father's really isn't a good sort. Before the little general shot that arrow, I was looking through the documents Yusheng gave me. I just found out the stepmother is Prince Yu's adopted daughter, and Prince Yu had his entire clan executed 10 years ago. Right around the time Shen Yuan came to propose marriage, Yusheng is convinced that I can't leave the capital and return to Lingzhou. She doesn't know that before Wang Yu had died. She told me my father wrote in a letter that he was coerced into marrying Prince Yu's adopted daughter. It was a formal, official marriage, right from the start. Just waiting for my mother to pass away so she could brazenly take the position of main wife. Back then, Yusheng was already a prince's consort, glamorous and covered in jewels. She raised a hand to stroke the jade hairpin at her temple and laughed. Your dad and that stepmother of yours actually share some true affection. The prince's manor has been gone for 10 years, yet that woman Wang is still living just fine. She threw a stack of papers onto my face. I read them as I walked. She did this to break my spirit. Me dad was once such a good husband and father, but because my good, nothing second uncle stirred up trouble, he was forced into exile in Lingzhou. Our whole family fell completely into Prince Yu's hands because of this. Second uncle resented my dad, and along with him, second aunt and her young daughter also resented us mother and daughter. Fevers, severe illnesses, my birth mother dying young. Which one of these didn't have their hand in it? Luckily, heaven took pity on me and gave me a chance to start over. The collapse of Prince Yu's manor is imminent. Since my dad doesn't have the resolve, then I'll be the one to make the move. On the third day of learning the rules, my dad suddenly arrived. The old servant women holding me down awkwardly let go. Greetings, my lord. That refined lord, however, suddenly flew into a rage. He was so angry his beard trembled, and he sternly ordered his attendants, drag these wicked women away, drag them to the Wang woman's courtyard, and give each of them a beating. Cries for mercy immediately rose one after another. He acted as if he heard nothing, walking straight over with red eyes to support me. He choked out, "Little Yuaner, Daddy's Yuaner, it is Daddy who has let you down." I still didn't say a word. He finally realized something was wrong and turned to ask Xu Ning, "Why doesn't the young lady speak?" Xu Ning seemed like she had been holding it in for a long time, and suddenly burst out crying. "My lord, you don't know what kind of life the young lady lived in the capital." With great emotion, she recounted one by one how I lived under another's roof, and was bullied after losing my mother, and how before leaving the capital, I was almost plotted against to sleep, in the same place as a strange man. She also made up a lie that I couldn't speak anymore because of it. She spoke until my dad's eyes were soaking wet, and his hands clenched into fists. He sighed. "People aren't what they used to be," adding, second brother said. "He would look after you well. I thought he at least had that much conscience." Conscience? Where would a person like that get a conscience from? Seeing that Prince Yu was about to fall, he didn't dare offend the Duke's household he'd already hooked up with, but he could push me out without hesitation to take the fall for his precious daughter. His daughter hooked up with a prince before the scandal broke, using my father's salt permits as a certificate of allegiance, to ensure the prince wouldn't turn around and ask to marry me instead. I had to go fill the hole left by their social climbing. Seeing that her acting was remarkably effective, Xu Ning doubled down. "It is a pity that our madam didn't even see a single letter from you, my lord, before she died." My dad froze. Then, unable to control himself, he bent over, clutched his chest, and called my mother's name over and over. "Tonger, Tonger, I have failed you. That is it. Never forget my mother. I must never forget my mother." He called me into the study and briefly spoke about the old days. Just like Yusheng said, the month after my dad arrived in Lingzhou, a group of people from Prince Yu's manor showed up because he held some of the salt permits for Zhongyan. They reached out and produced the handkerchief my mother had embroidered with her own hands when I was just a month old, using the lives of his wife and daughter to force him to submit. They made him hand over a portion of the salt permits to Prince Yuto, make him prove his loyalty. They demanded that he marry the manor's foster daughter. This so-called foster daughter was nothing but a widow from a side branch of Prince Yu's family. Making a court official raise that woman's son, yet secretly blocking me from coming to Lingzhou several times. My dad couldn't resist. He could only secretly send letters back, but who would have thought my mom didn't read them? But that was the only time she didn't read it. Later, he died of illness. My dad was distraught, detained in Lingzhou like a puppet. He suddenly went crazy and submitted a petition to resign, but was once again threatened by his own younger brother with his life. Years passed, and the second wife schemed to get a child. From then on, he stayed in Lingzhou. It wasn't until just before the new year that the third prince found leverage against Prince Yu and extended an olive branch to my father. He said with hatred, "I want Prince Yu's entire lineage to be buried with your mother." I finally spoke my first words to him. "Then what about the others?" He closed his eyes, his voice weary. "Let Dad think about it some more." I said nothing, turned around, and walked away. The men of this world are heartless, deeply affectionate like my dad. His wife died at the hands of his enemy. Yet after spending time with that enemy's daughter for a long time and giving birth to a daughter, that woman gained another layer of identity, his child's mother. But I am also a child with a mother. His young daughter needs a mother. But what did my mother do to deserve this? And what did I do to deserve this? I took my sword and went to Jinyu Hall. That woman sat high in the seat of honor, draped in wealth. My mother had long since turned into a mound of yellow earth. Beside her was the son born of her former husband, and on her lap was the spoiled young daughter. The tip of the sword flashed with a cold light. Under the candlelight, the group's laughter and chatter died away, and heavy fear surfaced on their faces. But I suddenly laughed. When I, Yu Yuan, first arrived at the Yu Manor, I was indebted to Madame for teaching me the rules of Lingzhou. But Madame ought to know, the Yu family comes from the capital, and sooner or later will return to the capital. Out of a desire to return the favor, I, Yu Yuan, would also like to teach Madame the rules of the capital. Perhaps my tone was too fierce, for not a single person dared to say otherwise. Only that woman forced herself to stay calm and said, "I am your legal mother. You draw your sword to threaten me. Do you intend to commit matricide?" Even the big yellow dog under the veranda would have to laugh a couple of times at those words. My mother's murderer. How can she be a mother? Acknowledge a thief as a mother. Her face grew even more panicked. "I am the daughter of Prince Yu. How dare you touch me?" Prince Yu can hardly save himself. Madame has lived in the inner quarters of Lingzhou for a long time. Being the mistress of the house, your word is law on all major matters. Perhaps you've forgotten that when a person wrongs another, they must apologize in person. I won't make things difficult by forcing you to go all the way to the capital this time. Shuning stepped out from behind me at just the right moment, holding my mother's spirit tablet with both hands. "I've brought my mother's spirit tablet. Madam, kowtow 3 times to my mother, and make them loud." She trembled. And then, if anyone comes forward to help her, even if it is just a chicken, I'll chop them in 2. When my dad arrived, his youngest daughter was wailing. His son had long since wet his pants in fear, and the new bride had slipped back to her maiden home, amidst the chaos without anyone noticing. The stepmother's hair was gripped in my hand. She had already smashed her forehead open. The tip of the sword was aimed at her throat. She wept. "Master, 1 night as husband and wife means 100 days of grace." My dad's eyes were cold and silent. He let the maidservant carry his youngest daughter away before saying, "I was never husband and wife with you, so what bond is there to speak of? I originally intended to spare your life, but my daughter wants to kill you." Tears filled his eyes again. "Let it be. You must die." He walked over slowly and pried my fingers open one by one until he was holding the sword himself. I suddenly asked, "Dad, don't you want to avenge Mom?" "At least, not as much as I do. The living are ultimately more important than the dead." "It is just that Madame Wang can't compare to me," I said. "Even if she dies, Dad, I still won't forgive you." His face turned ashen, but he said nothing. The next day, everyone in the Yu household knew that Madame Yu had committed a wrong, and, after being cast aside, was sent to a temple. For the sake of his youngest daughter, my father saved her some face in the end. It is still better than the last life. In the last life, they just lived out their entire lives like that. Fortunately, before Mother passed away, she only thought of me. I buried Wang Shi with my own hands outside the city, on a mountain facing directly towards the capital. Mom, do you see this? They will all pay the price. All that romance has long since lost its original color. I don't care anymore. I just want to avenge my mother. The day Shen Yuan came to Lingzhou happened to be the eve of my wedding. The intricate wedding gown was displayed in the courtyard. The moonlight was just right, and Xu Ning was talking to me about my dowry. The master dotes on you the most. Miss, with you getting married, you are taking away more than half of the Yu residence. I smiled, narrowing my eyes. Money is good. Money is practical. Just as we were speaking, there was a rustling sound from the wall, followed by a thud as someone fell down. Su Ning let out a startled cry, seeing the visitor's face clearly by the moonlight. Just like me, she had only crossed paths with him twice in this life, and the second time was merely a one-sided sighting at the water pavilion. She asked, puzzled, "Young Master Shen? Why are you here? This is the prefect's manor. How can you trespass into the inner quarters?" That person raised his head, brows dark as ink, appearance handsome. Who else could it be but Shen Yuan? He didn't answer, standing up silently and walking closer. He studied that wedding dress inch by inch, and his face gradually turned pale. I held Xu Ning down, so she could only look at him unkindly. He didn't care. He just watched, not blinking an eye. When he had seen enough, he came over and sat down, asking immediately, "When are you returning to the capital?" I shook my head. "I am not going back," he whispered to himself. "But I don't have any assets in Lingzhou. I am afraid I won't be able to scrape together the bride price." I laughed. Which family's daughter is young Master Shen asking to marry? Such a grand gesture. He finally looked at me. "The Yu family's eldest daughter, Miss Yu Yuan." I shook my head again. "You only spent 2,000 taels to marry me, and I made the jewelry myself, so clearly you didn't come to marry me this time." He looked so sad. "Little Yuan, then who are you going to marry?" I beamed. "Prefect Ji's young son, Jiyue. Thanks to Yu Sheng, she even picked him out herself. It is fake. Jiyue is that person's cousin. Just go ahead and hate her. The grudge over the marriage scheme, the hatred for the home raid and clan extermination. There is plenty to hate. I won't need to lift a finger for either of these two. Congratulate me, Shen Yuan." He wouldn't. He looked over with those affectionate eyes, which also held a familiar hatred. "I will avenge you, Yuaner." "Of course I am willing. I couldn't ask for more. I never want to set foot in the capital again in this life. He is reborn, which is quite an unexpected joy. The day I left the capital, I vaguely heard him calling me, yet I wasn't worried at all. The people in that household, stepmother, concubines, concubine, born children, not a single one is easy to deal with. Add to that the Yu family in the capital. Shen Yuan has plenty to endure. Sure enough, it took him several months just to get here. In the previous life, he said he forgave me. But he didn't trust me, yet still said he forgave me. Isn't that just being blinded by lust? If he wasn't blinded by love, why would he suddenly agree to give me a divorce letter right before the raid on our home? Before, even when I went mute, he still thought drinking some herbal medicine would fix it. I know he did it to save me, but his mistake was insisting on seeing me one last time before he died. So I said, "If I don't have a good life and get divorced, you have to come take me away." Shen Yu, and kept silent, standing in the courtyard for half the night. That black outer robe I liked most was soaked by the dew, the color patchy and uneven, looking utterly wretched. I woke up from a sleep and locked eyes with him like that through the window. His voice was hoarse, answering who knows who. "Okay." He climbed over the wall and went outside. But I am living very well, because Jiyue was truly my own choice. In the previous life, I heard he never married and died of illness in his 20s. It was exactly a few months after I got married. I don't know the reason, but in this life he is actually still alive and well, though I reckon his health won't be too good. Choosing a person like this, I feel no burden on my conscience. I don't want to be burdened by any woman's love debts anymore. Since I have to get married, let's just get it done in one step and become a widow early. On the day Prince Yu's home was raided, I took my newlywed husband along to watch. Those people whom I was seeing for the first time in 2 lifetimes, yet who had ruined my entire life, were being pushed and shoved by a group of soldiers, looking just like stray dogs. My husband has a cheerful disposition. Watching with great interest, he said, Yuan, that guy just stuffed a gold ingot into his shoe. Good Lord! The soldiers next to him heard that plain as day. That group immediately had all their shoes stripped off, and quite a bit of gold and jade was searched out. Gus smiled, revealing a canine tooth. I was even more amused, bending over with laughter. He really is good looking. My Yuan's taste is naturally good. Even if I did it over 10,000 times, I'd still love a beauty. The important thing is, he is nothing like his cousin. That general who loved Yusheng, who shot me in the heart with an arrow. He won't make general in this lifetime. In the 10th year of Yongcheng, he died from a calamity in the inner residence. To the very end, I didn't know his name, but I remember the way he looked when he died very clearly, shooting me dead. A woman cast out of the manor, loving Yusheng, yet having once thought about marrying me for her sake. So what if I die? Me husband could be a general too. Yes, I am just such a vicious woman now. When the news of Shen Yuan and Yusheng's wedding arrived, I was counting the gifts I received for my birthday. My husband became a general in this life, and his health is excellent. I suddenly don't want to be a widow so much anymore. After the birthday banquet, his eyes sparkling, he said, Yuan, what else do you want? I'll find anything for you. Acting on instinct, I hugged his lean waist, buried my head in his chest, and said, I only want you to stay with me forever. As for that letter from the capital, like everyone before it, I never opened it. I just left it on the table. Once they piled up, I'd put them all into the charcoal basin and burn them, which is why I didn't find out until a year later that Yusheng and Shen Yuan had an accident while riding the same horse and both fell off. Gus sighed. One dead, one seriously injured. What was the point of flaunting their love? He would be like this sometimes, saying things that left me confused. But I understood this one, so I said excitedly, Tomorrow is your day off. Let's go for a spring outing. The peach blossoms on the outskirts are blooming. I want to go see the peach blossoms. As always, he revealed his extreme double standards. Yay, 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 I want to ride a horse with wifey. I laughed and went to tickle him, and soon the two of us were rolling around together playfully. Xu Ning, who now has 3 shops and is the boss, has become very steady. Just put a foot in and immediately pulled it back out, even thoughtfully closing the door. It is another year, and the spring scenery is glorious. I, Yuan, deserve to live a life like this.